Welcome, everybody, to our next episode of FoxTales. We're continuing our conversations on foundational AI readiness, and just want to thank everybody for joining. Today, we have a couple of rock star guests on this episode. Mike Perez, our president and fearless leader, and Ethan Jacocks, one of our senior TCs. And today's conversation is going to be a lot of fun. We are, as most organizations in this space, are leaning into AI, what it means. But I think most importantly, how are customers feeling, and what are some of the things that we are that we're dealing with as a partner in this ecosystem. And so today's conversation is like our others, just kind of free form, and looking forward to jumping in. It's going to be another good one. Um, one of the first questions that we like to ask at the top of all of our foxtails is just kind of a foundational setting, kind of the tone for what we're doing today. And today's question is, what's the biggest mistake organizations make when they say they're ready for AI? And we've all got different levels of experience here, dealing with certain customers. But Mike, give us your initial thoughts on what are you hearing from customers, and what do you think is some of the biggest challenges and mistakes that they're currently facing?
Yeah, yeah. I think what's the stat? Like, I don't know. I see it fluctuate between 70 and 80% of companies are not getting ROI on AI, right? And
Yeah,
why is that? I think a lot of it starts with um, they're throwing a tool without identifying what the problem is, and going under the covers a little bit on that. That could be anything from the data, right? Maybe the data is not clean. Maybe the workflows haven't been built with AI in mind. You kind of take a look at houses of the early 1900s built with knob and tube wiring, right? That doesn't
yeah,
work today, right? So you have to go in and kind of rip out and replace all of that, right? So I think that's a big piece of it. Um, I think that companies are um, mistaking enthusiasm for strategy a
yeah,
bit,
yeah,
kind of getting happy ears on AI. But there's a lot of things that kind of go into it, like um, the organizational change aspect of it. How are we preparing our employees to adopt and accept the new way uh, of of going about business? But I'll stop there and
sure.
hand it over to you guys.
Yeah, yeah. Ethan, what do you think? What are some of the things, your boots on the ground, man? What are some of the things that you think are some of the bigger mistakes organizations are making?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really easy to get into specifics a little more just because, we're conducting these workshops and talking through these things with the customers and, they're providing all of these ideas of things they want to do and, what their goals and outcomes are and all of these things. A lot of the times, though, there's an expectation, as you go to implement AI that it's going to increase automation, it's going to do all of these amazing things, it's going to sort of run things for you in a way, right? That's how like it's looked at a lot of the time. When really, especially day one, you go live with an AI tool, you're implementing an AI process, it needs to be monitored, and it needs to be monitored properly and sort of sculpted to your business and sculpted to make sure that it's giving sort of repeatable outcomes, which is a struggle with AI, right? Sometimes it can be unpredictable. So as you see month one, two, and three, you use the AI tool, you see what could be going wrong, what could be going right. You sort of change some of your prompts and change a little bit of what it's doing, and you grow it together, right? A lot of companies, I have a feeling it's a little bit of you throw the AI into your tool, into your process, and then it doesn't work. You panic, you remove it, and then oh
Yeah,
goodness, now your AI implementation has failed, right? So there
yeah,
needs to be a little bit of an expectation that there's going to be some upkeep and some sort of continuing building going on with your AI.
Yeah, yeah, those are great points, gentlemen. I think the only thing that I would add to this is we're forgetting some of our old school best practices, right? One of the tools that I've used for years is DMAIC, and that's a Lean Sigma tool, and it's basically, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. So we're forgetting the back half of that loop already. We're getting, Mike, to your point, we're getting customers are getting really excited about these new capabilities, but then they're sort of getting a little bit starstruck and forgetting to follow through and remind themselves, hey, we still have to do, making sure we're monitoring and controlling all of this. So yeah, good stuff. Great response. So as we're looking through our path and, cutting through all the AI hype, some of the things we want to talk about today, as well as, defining what AI readiness means for, ServiceNow specifically in that ecosystem, some shared practical steps that, teams can take now. And I think that's such a big piece of all of these conversations. And pump the brakes a little, make sure we're having the right conversations when. You know, when clients are feeling this pressure to do something with AI, these common pain points here, and you guys talked to this a little bit, executive pressure, efficiency mandates, support volume growth and cost optimization. Those are the ones that we're hearing pretty consistently. What are your guys' thoughts on, these points here? And what are you hearing, and what are some of your additional thoughts on these topics here? I know some folks may not even be to this stage yet. So Ethan, we'll start with you. Quickly, just maybe just pick one and kind of provide some context in your experience, what you're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're certainly seeing all of these things, especially, the one I would focus in on most is efficiency, right? You're expecting this to sort of take a lot of the legwork off of a major piece of the puzzle. And so when you're doing something like that, you need to sort of crawl, walk, run this like you would, any other implementation. You're going in and the expectation again is, oh, we want to AI everything. Well, no,
Mm,
AI is some small specific process, some small use case you can get out of it and then go from there and build. There's
that's
very
good.
easy steps to take to start small, start using the AI, start getting the efficiencies, and then grow from there as you learn.
Yeah, that's good. Mike, what do you think the executives are feeling so much pressure? You talk, with our customers at the C-suite level pretty consistently. Why do you think they're feeling that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, it's like any other technology that's come out, right? You have a board or a CEO that hears from peers, and the immediate question turns internally: what are we doing to get ahead of this curve, right?
Yeah.
I was just at a conference last week, and this was the main topic. It was really the only topic, and I think there's a lot of fear within organizations that, is this going to replace what I'm doing, right? How much do I really want to lean into this? But the resounding sentiment at that conference and people that I'm talking to is, that's not the question, right? The question
Mhm.
is, how is this going to multiply what I do, right?
Yeah.
And so I can be more efficient and be more valuable for my organization. That was really, really refreshing to hear across the board. I mean, we probably heard there were 400 IT professionals in the Cincinnati area at this event, and that was the resounding message: is how are we leaning into this to enable our teams to produce more and become more effective.
Nice. Yeah, that is great to hear, and a great reminder for everybody watching too. That's good. All right, so kind of looking through, taking this in, Ethan, to your point, kind of getting a little closer to the tactical side of this. When we look at, AI readiness, and boy, that is such a huge spectrum these days,
Yeah.
and a lot of different opinions and a lot of different perspectives. But some of the things that we're doing at SnowFox to be, very proactive about this, and looking through our data quality and structure, we're having those conversations consistently. Process maturity obviously is a really big one as well. Platform hygiene, Ethan, you're really close to this with, several of our
Yeah.
customers. If you had to audit, AI readiness in 30 days, right? for an organization, where would you start? What would be maybe your top recommendation? Where would you start with, from the bullets listed above?
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to start with the underlying data, right? You can somewhat compartmentalize, when you start using AI for a specific use case. Well, maybe what I'm doing, really heavily relies on past ticket data. Maybe it really heavily relies on, knowledge to be able to, look up information and provide it to people using AI, through AI search and other tools. So, looking at the underlying data that's going to support the specific AI process you're getting into is super, super powerful. And you don't have to boil the ocean, right? When you go process by process and look at the data that that process needs to use to succeed, you can sort of go through one by one and really level yourself out, build up, the volume, the data quality, all of those things. And then you've got a really, really good support structure for your AI.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I think one of the things that, that I'm seeing, and Mike, I know you're in some of these conversations too. A lot of folks confuse process volume with process maturity. They think that just because they have, thousands of cases that they actually have process maturity, and that's sort of a myth, right? And, some of the newer Paulisms that I've been throwing out there is AI will find the weakest, link in your chain very, very quickly, way faster than a team will, way faster than what you would expect. So the importance of having these foundational structures in place is so key, for sure. Mike, any other thoughts on this before we move on?
I'm going to leave this part to Ethan. This is his.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think you want me dabbling in that.
Yep, yep. Um, So, talking through, our deep dive and, what we're seeing, how we're teeing up SnowFox and our readiness. Ethan, let's talk through, we've done quite a few of these at this point. I want to get right in and go a little deeper on how SnowFox evaluates our AI readiness. Let's riff on that for a second before we go into some of the other things, because I think that's such a great nugget to provide people out there just who are struggling on just where to start. That first step is always, people kind of have this, caution around that. They have a little
Yeah.
hesitancy around this, right? So, walk us through some of the things that you're doing specifically on, how we're doing our AI readiness assessments, and just, those initial conversations that you're having with customers to kind of help them, lower their shoulders and get a little more comfortable with the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. That sort of lowering of shoulders, right? That happens pretty quickly after you lay out, very practical, like next steps and things to do, as you take it out of sort of an educational exercise and into, hey, we need to look at these tables, we need to look at these processes. It's very easy to, sort of take the value you want to get out of AI, identify the processes you're looking at, identify the data structures you're looking at, and then from there, you can build out a list of, okay, let's go look at your volumes and your quality for X, Y, and Z, right? So that makes it a lot easier and a little bit more palatable,
Hmm.
when you're really able to get into those specifics. And again, like I was saying earlier, we take a look at the underlying data that's going to support the AI process, the volume and the quality. We're looking at the readiness of the customer to support the AI post go live. Like I was saying earlier as well, it's not something you just throw AI out there to the wolves and then let it run and assume it's going to be perfect. You need to start out with structure in place for an employee to say, hey, I've looked at the output of this AI. I've seen, oh, it's good, or oh, it could use some work. And then from there, you know how much you can trust it, how much you can give it as far as like automation, letting it do its own thing, how many controls you need. So you're going to learn a lot about it as it goes. So the starting steps are just making sure that you've got your checks and balances after you go live, and then making sure that the data supports what the AI needs to grab from. You're
That's
also
good.
going to want to make sure that, as far as like system architecture, if all of your stuff is, out in SharePoint and not in like a ServiceNow knowledge base or in, any other application, you need to make sure you're ready to build those connections or import that data, And so you have to look at the environment as a whole, instead of just, laser focused on ServiceNow, because there might be tools from some of these other applications, data from these other applications that the AI is going to need to succeed.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Mike, we're chest deep in our conversations at SnowFox, around how we're looking at AI, how it's, currently impacting our business and what we do for our customers. You know, let's take a minute and just kind of, flip the script here and get your words of advice on how you're helping us drive here at SnowFox and some of the things that you're helping us focus on, even short term right now.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier, I'm my view is how is this going to make us more efficient as an organization and helping create a better experience for our clients? How can we get to value faster, right? And we're pretty fast as it is, but how can this enable us to reduce that time to value, right?
Yeah.
That's probably a number one. Number two, obviously, is this approach right here. How are we enabling our customers to become more efficient on the platform? Those are the two main areas that we're looking at right now. Because as a small business that is growing, we have to be more efficient, just by nature of how things are with a small company.
Yeah.
That's our main focus.
Yeah, man, that's good. The only thing I think I'll add to that is, as you know, one of the things that SnowFox is doing is looking and kind of catching the waves off of ServiceNow's acquisitions, right? And better
Yeah.
understanding what do these companies mean. And we just saw yesterday their acquisition of Pyramid, which is really a pretty big game changer when you start introducing, natural language into interfacing with the platform, being able to ask direct, questions around, financial trends and SLA performance trends without having to write a report or a dashboard. The reality is this stuff is to your point, Mike, it's significant savings. These aren't 1% and 2% reductions. They are significant and in both time and money. And it's great for us to be in a position to help customers from that perspective. So great,
And
great.
not to soapbox and go on and on about, the ServiceNow specific implementation too much, but I will say, one of the great advantages of what Now Assist provides with some of their out of box reporting and dashboards, it gives you almost a calculator where you can say, oh, because we have used the AI to, write all of these things and give us these summaries and do all of this, it gives you, here are your hour savings, and you can associate that with, amount of money per hour that is actually saving you. You can get real cost savings, from the
Yeah,
ServiceNow reporting to tell you, hey, you're using all of this AI to eliminate all of this busy work. Here's how much you're actually saving. Here is how it's affecting your company. I think
yeah,
it's really, really cool that they've made sure to include that, as they sort of ship out these different products, that, oh, by the way, not only do you get the functionality, here's how you monitor how well it's doing.
yeah. Great point.
And to piggyback on that a little bit, Ethan, when you talk to executives, that's how they're paid, right?
Right.
They're paid on EBITDA, right?
Mhm.
And how can we scale our business and keep our team in place without scaling, the team to support that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and oftentimes in IT, you're constantly being forced to justify your spend, right? And here it
Yeah.
is, right? There it is. You can
Yeah,
take that and present that to your leadership team to say, because of the investments we've made, here's how much we've been able to save. Huge. That's
yeah,
huge.
yeah. And that translates into platform justification, right? I think that's
Right.
boy, if that isn't the one of the most challenging questions that we get asked from our customers, it's at least in the top five, right? And no better way to justify, that per seat cost with this stuff. It's a really really significant impact now. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so kind of going another kind of layer, double click into this a little bit more, measuring AI impact and success. Let's kind of talk through what we think this looks like, 6 months in, what are those meaningful impacts, as we're about 6 months in with some of our customers and different things that we're doing. Let's talk through some of that, and even if it's a little bit of forecasting there, Ethan, what post some of our go lives that we've been doing. What are you seeing with some of our AI rollouts and some of those benefits? Can be these listed here or any others, but you're really close to that with us now.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that you're seeing and some of the feedback we're getting from customers on that positive impact?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big sort of challenges, and challenge is almost a strong word for it, is you want to get the usage in, right? You're introducing a new tool, and that's not always easy for somebody whose day-to-day job is, sort of being encroached on in a way, right? The work that you're doing every day, it's changing. And so making sure that these tools are properly communicated to those people, they're trained on it, then they start using it, then you start to see a lot more of the cost savings, the productivity increases. And also, too, once you go use it those first, second, and third times and you start getting used to it, then it starts to really take off. You start to get a lot more of that sort of explosive use of it. And then your problem very much flips on itself to where, oh, now everybody wants it, and you have to figure out, how your licensing works with that and everything else.
Yeah.
We've even had situations where, we wanted to do like overarching sort of knowledge creation with AI. And so we have people that are using knowledge gaps reported by others to send things their way so that they can use the AI to its fullest, and sort of funnel things into a more efficient process. So
Yeah.
the usage is really, really important. It's explosive as people start using it, seeing the value. And then, from there, it only becomes more powerful, and it's a lot easier once you get those first couple of teams to use it to be able to sort of expand the use cases more and more and more. It's exponential, certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. I think one of the things that I throw out here is a soft, meaningful KPI, and that is trust. What we're seeing in the field is, if you go back, gosh, I don't know, 8 or 10 years when machine learning was really getting popular, and you have a whole team of data science, grinding through that data. That curve was challenging because that team would tell you, use this data with caution. We have more work to
Yeah.
do here and all those things. But what we're seeing is an immediate trust on the platform's capabilities, and then immediate trust with our customers, meaning they're already seeing so quickly how valuable this is, but they're not afraid of it as much as they were a few months ago. They're already seeing, man, if we're really just kind of this entry level and we're already seeing this improvement, what does that mean longer term for the platform? And the
Right.
answer is so much more savings, but also too the additional functionality. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing. Mike, any thoughts there? Any folks you talked with that you can add some context?
No, I mean, I think the touching on one thing that Ethan said is that double-edged sword of this is working really well. How do I get more? Right?
Hmm.
We saw that you see it almost every ServiceNow implementation we do, AI aside, right? This
Yeah.
thing works so well and it's so powerful. I'm a separate business unit. How can I get my work into the platform? Right.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and this just kind of compounds that. It's a good
Yeah.
thing,
you're
uh,
right. Yeah.
but it's still a problem, right? Like, and how do we address that problem? Um, it's great to see.
No, that's good. That's good. All right, a little bit of rapid fire here. Mike, let's start with you. Most organizations move too fast on AI when they.
Yeah, kind of going back to the mistaking the enthusiasm with strategy, right? It's great that everybody wants to get everything or to utilize AI, but what problems are we solving, and are we ready as a company to take that on, right? So what steps can we work back towards to make sure that we're ready to adopt the platform?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Ethan, how about you?
Yeah, I think most organizations move too fast on AI when they don't assign somebody to be monitoring those outputs. My
That's good.
experience from it is, a little bit more on the technical side and a little bit less high level. But very, very often, if you don't say, oh, the output of this AI, you know, Paul, you have to go and make sure that you're monitoring those outputs, seeing if they're good or bad. And then if they're good or bad, you give it the thumbs up or thumbs down, allow it to track how happy you are with its outputs. And then from there, going through and sort of, doing some of that change over time to make sure that it's more consistent, that it's doing exactly what you want it to. And that's how you build the trust, right? You don't build
Yeah.
trust by giving AI all the power, letting it go do all of the automation day one, and then just hoping that it does all the right things, right? You build the trust
Yeah.
over time by watching the outputs, seeing if they're good, if they're not, getting them there. And then from there, over X amount of time, you see, okay, it's consistently good, it's solid. Now we're ready to really give this thing a little bit more power and a little bit more, sort of individualism.
That's good. Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add there is moving too fast when they trust the security blindly.
Yeah.
We're dealing with so many different pieces of technology now, and a lot of our customers are integrating, with Microsoft tech stack and others, ChatGPTs of the world and things of that nature. And they make that setup really easy, but the cost of that easiness is security. And so my caution would be is intentionally slow that part down and make sure that your security is in check, just to be on the safe side. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
great feedback. Let's see here. Looking at questions. We don't really have any questions right now. So I think we can kind of wrap this one up. Fantastic session today. Thank you both for joining and appreciate your guys' insights and your expertise in this area. And as always, reach out to us on LinkedIn if anybody has any questions. And our contact information is below. We're always open to hear and get questions from folks that we want to be able to help and support. So thanks everybody for making the time, and we appreciate it. We will talk to you soon.